Well, the Tigers front office did make some player moves that we will discuss, but a broadcaster for the team also has a big move potentially ahead of him.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Welcome in, everyone. Hope you all are having a fantastic week here as we hit the halfway point of the work week. Got a few things to talk about. We will spend plenty of time talking about some small signings that the Tigers made, the Justin Henry-Malloy trade. We'll end the show by kind of looking around the league and seeing, some moves that have been made around baseball and how they impact the Tigers so far this week. But I want to start off the program here today talking about Jason Benetti. This is one of the coolest storylines, and I think it deserves much more of a light than it has been given up to this point. So for those who are unaware, NBC is getting the rights to Major League Baseball back for the first time in a long time. The last time that NBC had, as much pull as it will this upcoming season, I believe was the year 2000. Okay, so, we're talking 26 years ago now. And they're going to have Sunday Night Baseball. I think they have all of the wild card round games, or the rights to all of the wild card round games. They will have one of the, or a handful maybe, I don't know, of the opening day games, prime time, whatever. Then they have some primetime Labor Day games, etc. Right? So it's a big transition after, 25 years of ESPN kind of manning the ship in that regard. We knew that the relationship with MLB and ESPN was kind of deteriorating over the years. And so now NBC is staring down, decisions that have to be made in terms of who their national broadcast team is going to be. Now, back in, the 90s, that there was a historic lineup of broadcasters, depending on what year you pick, really. And awful announcing, which hilariously started as just a social media account that just was posting videos of, announcer fails, 10 years ago. And then all of a sudden now is a legitimate news source for broadcasting news and sports. And so Awful Announcing put out an article earlier this week highlighting that NBC's top choice for their national baseball play-by-play crew, or play-by-play member of their national crew, if English was easier, is Jason Benetti. And I don't have this isn't something I bring up with analysis or, a ton of follow-up opinions on. It's just really cool. It's just really, really cool to me. A Tigers announcer and broadcaster being considered to be one of, if not just straight up the best in the business, is so cool to me. I am a child of the Mario and Rod generation. Okay. Ernie's last year was, I think, the year I was born. So that transition, or around there, that transition, happened. I didn't really get to grow up with Ernie Harwell. Now I have a plethora of like books and recordings and videos. I got a Ernie Harwell DVD, like a legend, obviously one of the most profound and recognizable figures in the history of this organization, but not someone that I ever got to see live. And so kind of having this moment now where I am an adult, and like this obviously is, I'm saying I because I know that a lot of people feel this way. This obviously has nothing to do with me, but it's just one of those things where you kind of get to look around and realize like, oh, like the Tigers have one of the best in the business at this. And that is just such an awesome thing. As I said, NBC gets baseball again for the first time in over 25 years. He still would be, doing Tigers stuff. That doesn't change. It's not like he goes to NBC full time. They're not going to have baseball games literally, nationally broadcasted games literally every night or anything. So he'll keep doing what he's doing. Honestly, it probably won't even look too much different because he already is part of Fox, national Fox Sports broadcast. And already leaves for whatever 30, 40 games a year probably. Dan Dickerson slides over and does TV for some of those. They had Bobby Scales on TV for some of them. Obviously, the revolving door of color commentary in general. So they're flexible with it. I'm sure the Tigers, honestly, not only don't have an issue with it, I'm sure they will be in favor of it, because it just gets more eyes on one of their own. And that's always a good thing. So can't imagine there would be too much of a scheduling change in that regard. The only question I have before we move on from this is I'm not sure how this works with his Fox deal. And again, that doesn't impact the Tigers at all. So sigh of relief. There's nothing, happening in that regard. But I can't imagine that Fox, he's still under contract with Fox for a little while, at least a year. I can't imagine that they would just give him permission to do both simultaneously. That feels like a conflict of interest from Fox's perspective. But also, like, Benetti is such a fixture in their NFL and college football broadcasting when it comes to Fox that maybe now that football season is over, they'll have a little bit more leeway with, maybe even just like terminating his contract so that NBC can pick it up. I don't know all the ins and outs. I have no clue. Maybe it's easier. Maybe it's not. I have no idea. I just think it's absolutely awesome that a Tigers broadcaster is being considered for, what will maybe end up being, depending on how long he does it, the national voice of Major League Baseball for a few years, or again, if he keeps going for an entire generation, like some of the guys we've seen over the years. So tip of the cap to him, absolute legend, awesome. And we'll see how that unfolds. Obviously, they got still a few months time to really iron that out and figure it out, but it'd be really cool if that ended up being the case. Let's talk about some moves metaphorically on the field. Obviously, there's nothing on the field happening on January 7th, but let's talk about some moves the Tigers front office made in terms of how this roster is going to look in a couple of months. We have Justin Henry-Malloy being traded. Got, some strong reactions to that one. We'll kind of break that down. And then some minor league signings. Some have an invite to spring training. Some don't. We'll kind of go more in depth on those as well. All right. We'll do that right after this. First, though, got to talk to you all about our friends over at Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming. Between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down every hidden fee? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. I was shocked when Rocket Money showed me I was paying for, this is a real story, by the way. I, obviously wanted to use the app because I knew that I'd be talking about it. Went through. I was paying for 2 Amazon subscriptions. Apparently, I had 2 different Amazon accounts and was paying for both of them at the same time. No need for that. And I never would have figured it out if not for Rocket Money because I'm not very intelligent. So I love how it tracks all of that. Easily my favorite feature, and you can cancel them right through the app, which is what I did. But there's no more hunting down, customer service numbers or anything like that. It is such a tool, and there's so many other great features in terms of, growing your savings as well. So let Rocket Money help you reach your finance goals. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back on Friday as we put a bow on the week, talk about any other news and notes. We'll continue player breakdowns. I know I've said that a few episodes in a row. We actually have some news to talk about today, so we'll push it. But we got plenty of time all throughout January to kind of highlight. I do want to talk Bradley Green and have a serious, long deep dive conversation about him. We'll have a mailbag at some time in the coming weeks. Still plenty more this offseason. So thanks for making us your first listen of the day and making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Now you can go check out the Everydayer Club. It's an access to an ad-free feed of Locked On Tigers, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, every other major podcast app. And you get an invite to a members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. It is awesome. I'm in there now. It's very cool. So go to LockedOnPodcastNetwork.com/EverydayerClub or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. So we talked about Benetti in segment 1. I want to talk about some moves that actually did happen here in segment 2. Justin Henry-Malloy traded to the Tampa Bay Rays for cash considerations. I'll be honest with you. I was very confused and kind of blown away by the reaction from the fan base online. And I know that, reading too much into just like Twitter's reaction to something is maybe more my fault than it is like the actual, reaction. But I was very surprised that the reaction was as strong as it was. He was DFA'd 2 weeks ago. I'm not sure what we were all like expecting. To be quite frank, getting anything for him is a win because he was DFA'd. I don't know. Like when you are designated for assignment, you have, 10 days, a week, so X amount of days to remove that player from your 40-man roster. If you can't trade them and you don't just straight up release them, find another way. Then at the end of that, you put them on waivers so that they can clear waivers. And if they do clear, then you can keep them in the organization if you want. We did that with Akil Badu. What was that, last year, right? Removed him from the 40, but he cleared waivers, and so he stayed in the organization. Just no longer on the 40-man roster. But this tells me that people were going to claim him. Someone out there was going to claim him. He wasn't going to come back. He wasn't going to be in the Tigers organization next year. We did this, again, like we already had this conversation 2 weeks ago. So I was kind of confused on why the reaction, why we have to be like all mad about this again. It's not like anything changed really from when the DFA announcement was made to the trade announcement on Tuesday. Again, like I'm not saying that this is like some super genius move. Like this was just this is what happens when this is a DFA. Like this is just what this is, what being DFA'd like leads to sometimes. That's just part of it. I think the only reason the Rays would trade assets for a guy that was going to inevitably be put on waivers or maybe already was on waivers is if they didn't think they could get him. The Rays, middle of the pack, above, higher half of the league in terms of, record. That's the waiver order is determined by record. Maybe they thought somebody ahead of them in that waiver priority was going to take him, so they didn't want to take any chances. Threw the Tigers however much money and got Malloy themselves. I already said my piece on him as a player when he was DFA'd, so I truly do not want to spend any more time and like rehash this whole thing. I love Justin Henry-Malloy, okay? I hope he turns into an absolute star. I will be rooting for him wherever he plays in his Major League Baseball career. I also have zero issue with the Tigers moving on. He did not hit for average. He had no power at the Major League level. He doesn't run well, and he is comfortably a negative defender. He is a negative WAR player so far in his Major League career. He walks at an uber elite clip, like elite of the elite clip, and that is his value. And I hope he puts it all together in Tampa, and I will always root for him and be a fan of his. Tampa, this is just the most Rays acquisition ever. Like they love doing a team full of specialists thing, right? So I'd imagine that Malloy won't be facing a right-handed pitcher like ever again. I say half jokingly, and probably will only DH as well. But heck, I mean, there's nothing that says he can't have a 700 or a 750 OPS strictly facing, lefties and DHing and be a positive contributor for them. So I wish him nothing but the best. As again, we talked about a little bit more in depth. You can go find that episode whenever they announced he was DFA'd. If you want more, analytical analysis there, we'll say. The Tigers did bring some players into the organization as well. We'll start with the biggest one, which I kind of like say in air quotes. Scott Effross signed to a minor league deal with an invite to Major League Spring Training. I'm going to be totally real with you. This is literally just Chase Lee's replacement. Okay. It's kind of like the same way that I talk about how Yu Lee is Andy Ibanez's replacement. Scott Effross is just Chase Lee. Like, legitimately. He's 32 years old, so he's older than Chase Lee was, obviously. Chase Lee traded earlier in the winter. Effross is a 32-year-old right-handed reliever that throws sidearm. If anything, I think his arm angle is actually barely negative, so almost a little bit under, sidearm, technically, if you want to get super specific there. He tops her out around 88, 89 miles an hour with his fastball, same as Chase Lee. Right-handed sidearm, same as Chase Lee. Throws a slider, same as Chase Lee. And a sinker, same as Chase Lee. He, at his best, has been really effective against right-handed hitting. Struggles more against lefties, same as Chase Lee. The last 3 years, he's been a fringe MLB guy. I think he has fewer than 15 innings pitched at the major league level over the last 3 years combined. Now, one of those he missed almost entirely due to injury. But the other two, I mean, if he was doing well enough, could have come back. And his ERA in those short MLB stints are very high. He has really good ground ball numbers throughout his major league career. That's a good thing. He doesn't walk a lot of guys. That's something that this organization obviously looks for a lot as well. He had a crazy good year in 2022. People may remember that. Bounced around, was a part of the Yankees organization at one point too. But his 2022 season was legitimately really good. Not sure we're ever going to get that again, like a 2.5 ERA and 60 or 70 innings from this guy. Not sure that's on the table. But if he can just be around what Chase Lee was, or maybe a little better, like this is a minor league deal with an invite to spring training. Like if he is even like an okay depth piece at some point, it's a successful signing. The invite to spring training is interesting because the other three pitchers we'll talk about after the break here did not receive that. So we'll see like how much of a legitimate, player he is for the mix. The bullpen's kind of wide open. We'll talk about that as we get closer and closer to spring training and pitchers and catchers reporting and whatnot. But, I was kind of like road mapping it in my head the other day, what the bullpen would look like. Like the top four is pretty much locked and loaded and ready to go for opening day. But that 5 through 8, like the whole bottom half could really be varying degrees of odds for anybody else. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what the bullpen shakes out to look like here by opening day. And Scott Effross will reportedly be a part of that. I don't think he makes the team on opening day, if I had to guess right now, on January 7th. But if he stays in the organization after being demoted on opening day, I would almost as well guarantee you that he will pitch 20 plus innings for the Tigers at some point. That just seems, again, similar to what Chase Lee did for the Tigers last year. The Tigers did sign 3 other pitchers as well earlier this week, but none of them received an invite to spring training. We'll talk about those guys really quick before we move on to MLB news and more. We'll do all of that right after this. First, though, I'm going to talk to you all about our friends over at FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night, before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited-time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during happy hour always brings something new: boosts, bonuses, surprises. It's really easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing is perfect right before the weekend slate begins. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour on FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in as always, making us your first listen every single day. Let's talk about some other relievers. Well, one of them's a starter that the Tigers signed earlier this week. Dylan File, Woo-Suk Go, and Wandisson Charles all signed to minor league deals with no invites to spring training. We'll kind of run through these 3 really quickly here. Honestly, like, Wandisson Charles is kind of an electric factory. 29 years old. A few years ago, the Orioles were pretty big on him as a future reliever, had just crazy good, like, swing and miss stuff and really good strikeout numbers as well. This would have been when he was probably 25, 26 years old. Throws gas. At one point was like consistently hitting 100. Also had a slider at one point, had a decent splitter a little bit more recently. So all of this, and like, you hear that and you're like, wow, minor league deal with no invite to spring training for a guy that can, maybe throw 100 with a slider like that. That's ridiculous. Good strikeout numbers, as I said, when he was in the minor leagues prior to 2025. He also struggled so much that he quite literally did not play professional baseball in 2025. He was in some foreign leagues down south and also was at one point pitching in indie league baseball, independent league. This year, I guess it's 2026 now, but in the calendar year of 2025, like this past summer, spent time in indie ball. His command has been really rough for his entire professional career. His walk rates are, there are some seasons that are astronomical. So I have no issue with this. This is like a classic minor league, low risk, high reward type of signing that you just hope kind of pans out. We've seen a million of these over the years, and hopefully the Tigers pitching development can get the most out of him. The Athletics, he's been a part of their organization, didn't amount to anything. Orioles, he hasn't even pitched a major league game before. And again, his strikeout numbers at one point in the minor leagues and velocity were pretty darn good. So a testament to his struggles, but also his strengths. Next up, Woo-Suk Go. He was with the Tiger system last year, so don't have too much to add on him. Fastball, cutter, curveball, decent fastball velocity. I'm talking like 92, 94 at the absolute most. Kind of another guy that has shown that he can get strikeouts at the minor league level, but also has walked a decent amount of hitters. Go was a incredible, like very highly regarded closer in the KBO before coming stateside, and still only, I think, 27 years old as we talk, 27, 28 years old. So we'll see, but clearly the Tigers liked enough of, they picked him up. I think the Marlins cut him in like May or June. So we got like half a season of minor league ball out of him. The Tigers liked him enough to bring him back on a minor league deal. And then File is kind of just like the epitome of a depth starter. 4.7 ERA in the minor leagues last year at 29 years old. Has a handful of other pitches, or of different pitches rather. Not a big velocity guy, but is a starting pitcher that starts and throws a lot of innings. I'd imagine that this is like, Toledo depth, right? Like this kind of just screams Mud Hens rotational depth to me. Not sure there's really a path for him to be throwing, major league games this season, unless there's a big adjustment made or a huge turnaround or a ton of injuries maybe. But like the Mud Hens need innings too. Like that is, you got to fill out the entire organization. So nothing wrong with that. I know some people like listen to this and they roll their eyes and they're like, oh my goodness, Scott Harris, he just gets waiver claims and minor league deals. I get it. Okay. I kind of scoff at like the 50th notification about a minor league deal with an invite to spring training as well. But you kind of gotta, I don't know, separate artists from art sometimes. Like every organization needs depth, and there's nothing that says that this is like bad depth to have, especially on the pitching side of things. You want some guys that you can take chances on. So I have no issue with these moves in a vacuum. The issue that people have is nothing to do with these gentlemen. It has everything to do with what the Tigers aren't doing. So I want to throw that out there as well. Looking around the league, Kazuma Okamoto signs with the Toronto Blue Jays, $15 million a year for 4 years. That's $60 million total. Awesome for the Blue Jays. Awesome for him as well, man. Just really cool. He gets to immediately go to a huge market, right? A Blue Jays team that has an entire country rooting for them. Also a team that was just in the World Series and immediately gets to be for $15 million a year, I'd imagine he's starting opening day. And that's pretty darn cool for him to just immediately come over and be on, one of the better rosters and lineups in the American League. So that'll be really fun to watch. I'm not like heartbroken that the Tigers didn't go after him. I did talk about him earlier in the offseason. I like the profile a lot, maybe even more than Murakami, but I think that in this case, like, I don't know, I didn't need to pay him like $20 million either. Don Mattingly, now a coach of the Phillies, pretty darn cool report from earlier in the week. So Don Mattingly, who it will be on the ballot, for the Hall of Fame again. So, or maybe I don't even remember the Hall of Fame. We can have a whole episode on like the Hall of Fame breakdown. Obviously, Lou Whitaker, etc. But I have a lot of opinions on the Hall of Fame and the Veterans Committee. And is it even still called that anymore? I think it has a different name now. Yeah, a lot of thoughts. Not that anybody cares, but my head is large, so there's room for a lot of thoughts. We'll end the show by saying thoughts and prayers to Pat Caputo, who on, I believe it was Monday, kind of revealed publicly that he has been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Heartbreaking. Pat Caputo, an absolute Detroit sports media like legend, especially for people, my generation and younger. He was on the Mount Rushmore, right? Like Wojnarowski and Valenti and Caputo, kind of all in the same vein there. So wishing him nothing but the best. Great guy. Absolute, like I said, legend in this city. Will be forever linked to Detroit sports. And rooting for him very, very hard. If anybody can beat it, it's Pat. So God bless and best of wishes to Caputo and his family. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we, of course, will be back on Friday. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. And I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.